How you do that, Dale? How you do that, Dale? And I ain't mad about it. I and your man's Nic Rattlehead. And behind this camera, somewhere out in California, watching over your boy, hopefully staying safe, and dealing with the fact that I need to shave in my squeaky chair, is my buddy, my pal, my compadre, my amigo, my mans with the master plan, 100 grand. Only you, me, and God knows how much I love this guy, man. Tell him one more time, what's your name? Matt the Graff. Yeah. Matt the Graff. And we are Aftershock Reviews, here to give you the best extreme music reviews. And today I am stoked to talk about an album that I have been looking forward to since I heard the lead single, man. And y'all know what it is. Y'all know how much I love this man. You just do. I'm talking about Garden of Burning Apparitions by Full of Hell. Now, I heard the lead single, Industrial Messiah Complex, and was instantly stoked. All I needed to know was, where is the pre-order button, right? And what I was greeted with when it came out on October 1st of this year was an album that is insanely angry. It's so fast and it's such a rush, right? It is such a rush. And the thing is, it's a mixture of things that are new, and it's a mixture of things that are familiar, right? To help me put this in perspective, I am a big Andy Griffith fan. And I drop a lot of comparisons to the Andrew Griffith Show here on this show in particular, right? And the way I kind of look at it is this. When the Andrew Griffith Show ended after its 8th season, we were already familiar with everybody in Mayberry. And not just every character in Mayberry, but Mayberry as a setting, as a town itself, as its own entity. We knew Andy Taylor, we knew Opie, we knew Aunt B, we knew Barney, we knew everybody, right? And the show ended. But what we were greeted with in the mid-70s was the new Andrew Griffith Show. And we thought that was going to be a reboot. And I'm saying we, of course I wasn't alive during that time, right? But still, what they thought was they were going to be greeted with a reboot. And that reboot was going to be in Mayberry and all the rest of these good things that they were familiar with. But what they were greeted with instead was an Andy character that had a family, who was a councilman, who didn't live in Mayberry, right? But there were still things that were familiar in it. Why? Because, yes, the fact that he was there, but as well, in the pilot episode, they had Don Knotts in there. They had George Lindsay in there. They had characters that we knew, but they weren't Barney Fife. Don Knotts was not Barney Fife. George Lindsay was not Goober. So they're trying to keep you invested and keep you anchored and make you open to the new ideas via the things that are familiar, via Don Knotts and George Lindsay and Andy Griffith himself, right? And that's how I kind of look at Garden of Burning Apparitions, because right down to the way that the album looks, to the way it's presented visually, we have Mr. Mark McCoy, right? And Mr. Mark McCoy is here and he does a fantastic job on all of the album artwork that is here, right? Just like he did on Trumpeting, just like he did on Weeping Choir, right? He does a wonderful job at taking the lyrical content and making a visual representation of those lyrics, right? Wonderful. Industrial Messiah Complex sounds like it came straight out of a B-side from Weeping Choir and Trumpeting Ecstasy, right? Right in that realm. And as Guided Blight opens, it opens at such a savage pace, just like Deluminate, just like Burning Myrrh. But what they're doing is a new Andy Griffith Show mentality. These things are familiar. These things we know full of hell to do. But what they're doing is keeping us anchored and keeping us invested and making us open to the new ideas that they are presenting to us here, right? What are some of those new ideas, Nick? The production is a little bit more denser. It's a little bit more closed in. It's a little bit more personal, right? It's not as open as the previous efforts. It's just not. But what that does is it makes the danger seem more palpable. It makes it seem like it's more personal. And that is just unnerving in itself, because I don't want to be that close to that level of insanity. I just don't, especially when it comes to track likes. Asphyxiant, I have trouble saying that. Asphyxiant, blessing. Boom. Because on Asphyxiant Blessing, you hear Dylan like maybe asphyxiating, right? It sounds like he's gurgling, like he's gasping for air midway through the track as it's breaking down around you. It's really great. And that's not something I want to be close and personal to, but the production forces that upon you, right? Also, in its frenzy, in its frantic pace, in its rage, its blinding rage on most of these tracks, right? Which lasts like maybe a minute or something like that, right? The instruments themselves, since they're doing so much here on top of a lot of feedback and a lot of static and noise, it feels like things are melting together and threatening to smother you under its sheer mass, right? It's absolutely fantastic, which is different than the openness and the instrument separation that can happen, especially on Weeping Choir, because we look at songs like Armory of Obsidian Glass, right? It's way more open, but it's also very doomy. So it leaves you to think about what is happening to you. It doesn't do that. It doesn't let you see the hammer coming to smash your face in. It doesn't do that. It sneaks up behind you, slits your throat, and as you're gurgling on your blood, it holds a tape recorder to you, records that sound, and then uses it as noise for the next track. It's really great and it's really wonderful. But these are new ideas, right? On top of the fact that they incorporate noise rock. And yes, I said it. Noise rock, right? If you're familiar with anything from Full of Hell, right? So you know that they have done collaborations with The Body. You know Dylan Walker has ventured out and did Sightless Pit, right? We also know that David Bland, or Dave Bland, I don't know if he wants to be called Dave or David, has done Jarhead Fertilizer and other projects, right? We also know that Spencer Hazard, this is a key point here, Spencer Hazard has done multiple different projects. The one that I really want to focus on here is I Flies. Why I Flies? Because I Flies is a love letter to noise rock. It's a love letter to things like Wolverine Blues by Entombed. And I say that intentionally because on that album, one of the track names is Full of Hell. And it's a noise rock track, very groove laden, heavy, crushing guitars. It's ballsy, man. Oh, it's good, right? But then on top of that, we can look at stuff like Unsane, or more notably, Helmet, and things like that. You can find DNA of that stuff here in this album, especially like on All Bells Ringing or Reeking Tunnels. Let's talk about Reeking Tunnels real quick. Reeking Tunnels is my favorite track from this album. And yes, I think it's like the second single, but it's probably the second single for a reason, because it is such an homage to that noise rock that they love, or that Spencer loves so much. But what gives it a different dimension, what makes it seem so new and so fresh, is Dylan's voice. Dylan, it's that weird black metal fry scream thing that he does, which I don't know how he can still speak properly by doing that, because if you also see Full of Hell live, the way he sounds on these recordings is the way he sounds when he gets on that stage. It's mind-boggling. But when you speak to him, he sounds like Joe Schmo. He sounds like anybody else, but he gets on stage. I don't know if he gets possessed by something. I don't know what happens, but he just starts yelling and screaming and gurgling and breaking his voice and doing different things. It's great. And he can do a wonderful death metal growl. The elasticity of his voice is beyond any comprehension that I have. It just is. And Reeking Tunnels, he gives it the fry scream and it makes it seem so cool, right? But then also with his vocal is a death metal vocal. It's good. So it's like a duet type of thing. It's absolutely fantastic. The wonderful groove, the catchiness of that riff is wonderful. Like Reeking Tunnels, and this is where one thing I will say for this album, I wish they did more of that. And it's because I love it so much. It's because I love it so much. And clearly they love the noise rock. Clearly they're doing different things, even when it comes to a lot of the effects that happen here, like the chorus effect that you get on Celestial Hierarch, which is noise rock. Let's just be real. They even, I think what I need to make sure I'm saying this band's name right. Gas Chamber, right? pretty easy. It's just, I just want to make sure I'm always saying band names right, and I don't want to like mispronounce or leave a name out or whatever else like that, right? I always want to make sure I'm saying it right. Gas Chamber, when it comes to Hemorrhaging Light, which is one of their albums I think came out like in 2014, which they get a lot of this writing from, which they get a lot of this tone from, right? It's noise rock. It really is, just with a hint of maybe grind and a hint of maybe like hardcore punk. It's really cool. It's absolutely fantastic, right? And I just wish the album had more of that. I really do, because it's such an interesting idea. It really is. But going back to my Andy Griffith Show, or new Andy Griffith Show analogy, right? It is also these new things that are being thrust upon us, the way that we're able to accept it and probably be like, hey, I really like this. I really think it's interesting. It's because it's still mixed in with things that are old. Industrial Messiah Complex literally sounds like a B-side from Weeping Choir. It really sounds like a B-side from Trumpeting Ecstasy, right? Right down to the freaking breakdown. It's good. Industrial Messiah Complex. Ah! Rain Thunder. It's good. Oh, it's good. It's fast. It's catchy. It's thundering. Oh, it's good. Like thundering hammers. Ooh. Ooh. The analogies are on another level, man. They really are on another level. But so is this album. Now, Nick, you clearly love Full of Hell. You speak so highly of them whenever you get the chance. Do you think that this is a masterstroke? Do you think this holds up to the rest of the albums? Yes and no. And here is the interesting thing that I had to wrestle with when it comes to this album. And maybe it's also the newness playing into this, right? Because I see a lot of people being like, it's the masterstroke, it belongs up there, it's the crowning jewel. I wouldn't say that. And the reason why I wouldn't say that is because I believe Weeping Choir and Trumpeting Ecstasy are still so groundbreaking and still so fantastic that I need more time to process this in order to properly put it in there. Because right now, as it stands, I don't think it's as great as those other two. It's still fantastic. I don't think it's that just yet. And that's not a bad thing. Stevie freaking Wonder never came out with a bad album. I don't think that there is a bad album in his discography. But not everything is Songs in the Key of Life. Not everything is Hotter Than July. Not everything is Intervisions. It's just not, but it doesn't have to be. It can still be good music. It's just not to those. It's not to the cornerstones of the discography. Same thing with The Cure, right? Not everything has to be Disintegration. Not everything has to be Pornography. Not everything has to be Bloodflowers. But it can still be a fantastic album. And that's where I am with Garden of Burning Apparitions. I don't think it's a crowning jewel, but what I think it is a jewel nonetheless in the crown of the discography. I think it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think if you're a fan of Full of Hell, please check this out. Because like I said before, in my Andy Griffith Show analogy, I keep bringing it up because I'm really proud of it, because I love the Andy Griffith Show. And anytime I get a chance to incorporate that into anything, I'm going to. It's a little something new and a little something that's familiar. And you put it together to make something that is A, different, but B, satisfying, because you get something that you recognize, right? I think it's great. The playing is fantastic. The different tunings that they use here, which is really weird, especially on All Bells Ringing. I never heard Full of Hell sound like this in this register before. I just haven't. And then maybe if I'm wrong, if they've done something like this before, please leave it in the comment section below after you like this video and subscribe to Aftershock Reviews, because we're getting good at this now. Like, I've never heard this before. And that's the thing I love about Full of Hell. They constantly reaching out and trying something new, right? They're constantly being like, we love this. Let's put it in here. For real? Yes. But it's noise rock, so put it in here. And they make something that's so much fun and so engaging. And to me, it makes them the forward-thinking cornerstone of our new wave of bands that we're having nowadays. Like, before we end it, let's talk about the noise pieces really quickly. Let's talk about Dialect Satellite real quick. Let's talk about non-atomism, right? These two things, especially in an album that is 21 minutes long, that's short. They dedicate, Dialect Satellite, I think it's 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Non-atomism is like a minute and some change. That's a long time to be dedicating to noise, but it is such a part of their DNA that they're not afraid to put it in there. They have no fear of being like, I want a noise piece, because it is a pivotal part of their concerts. It is a pivotal part of their DNA, so much so that they have so many different Full of Hell noise tapes. You can go and get lost on their Bandcamp just listening to just those. Forget the music, just those. Right? But I think what really helps Dialect Satellite is the fact that they actually put in lyrics. Dylan is singing or screaming on top of all of the industrial noise that is in this album. In this track. Non-atomism is the only part where I'm like, I don't mind it being here, but it's the placement of the track that I have a problem with, because it's between Reeking Tunnels and the closer, Celestial Hierarch, which is fantastic. I love the chorus effect that they put in that track. It just goes back to the noise rock thing. It's so freaking awesome. And yet again, it's not something I'm used to Full of Hell doing. Now, Spencer Hazard and his other projects, sure, this makes all the sense in the world for an I Flies record. It really does. But here in Full of Hell, it doesn't. But because it doesn't make sense, because it's new, because it's something that, like, I just like it, I just want to do it, I respect it to the moon and back that they did that, right? And that's why I have a problem with non-atomism. If you were to put it after Celestial Hierarch and let me have my run of noise rock pieces, I'd have been good. I'd have been great. But maybe if they do a re-release or something and put like another track in here as well and call it the deluxe version, and they switch that, this thing is perfect. I'd have had no problem with it. But that's the only thing I can kind of like nitpick at. This album is great. This album is fantastic. Please check this out. The name of this album again is called Garden of Burning Apparitions. Out now on Relapseful Records. Please check this out. I'll leave links in the bio below. You'll be able to go get shirts, vinyls, flags, all the rest of the stuff. We got to support our bands because I think they're going on tour in January or February of next year. And believe you me, this guy will be there. Never missed a Full of Hell show ever since I became a fan. And I will not start now. Check them out. But until next time, I am your man with the master plan 100 grand. Only you, me, and God knows how much I love this guy, man. And I'm talking about the one, the only, my brother, Matt the Graff. Wash your hands, support your bands. Peace. How you do that, dare?